At 9 that Wednesday night, my friend John called from New York. John is whom I've traditionally referred to as my best friend, having known him the longest of all friends since high school days in South Central Connecticut. It was John's parents that were my excuse to visit New Orleans in the first place. They migrated down from New England when John and I went off to college. John called just to check in. I left him a message that weekend about the new apartment. So we talked for a few minutes while he complained about his job as a contract lawyer with New York Life Insurance. Then he said he was coming down the following week. His dad was having an opening at a gallery on Magazine Street, and his brother is coming in from California. I told him to bring his golf clubs when he came and to call me when he knew what days he'd be around. When I hung up with John, I picked up the old Phyllis putter and practiced my putt stroke. The stiff-armed pendulum, club head, club shaft, hands, elbows, and shoulders, all together in one movementless motion, like the straight, heavy arm of a tall case clock, back and forward, head and eyes perfectly still. I went to the driving range with John a few times at the beginning of the year, and my new proximity to City Park obligated me to play more golf than I ever played up north. 4 18-hole courses, reasonable green speeds, and good golfing weather 12 months of the year, except summer, of course. A chance for a genuine change of lifestyle. Further evidence, among other things, that the Southern life indeed holds many treasures. Thursday afternoon, I called Carol at her office. She told me she would be there until 6 or 6:30. If I was late, I could leave the check in the mailbox. After a sluggish drive back from Jefferson, work, I deposited my paycheck at the First NBC on Carrollton, then drove to Bienville. I parked in front of the only yellow house on the block and walked up the steps to a wide open door. I knocked on the doorframe and Carol's voice answered sharply. Inside, she was standing behind a large desk and staring at the wall behind it. The wall was covered in Polaroids and pencil drawings, houses, gardens, floor plans. A creator or madwoman's pastiche. Rent's here. Carol said nothing. She was holding a red pencil in her mouth. I could see both ends of it, with her back to me. She moved the pencil a few turns between her teeth. The sound of it reminded me of the taste. The acrid, soft enamel and the soft crunch of the wood pulp, like a spoiled wine cork. She turned to face the door and put the pencil on the desk. Rent. Fruit of my labor. You deserve it and more, I answered, chummily. I handed her the check and stepped back again. Ain't that the truth? What are you working on, if I might ask? Oh, just my tombstone, Carol answered. Your tombstone? Why do you say that? Just feels like these houses are killing me sometimes. The clutter in Carol's office was quite impressive, tall and dangerous. The kind of clutter that might actually kill a person. Long day? Not long enough, Carol said with another smile. By the way, what time's it? Around 6. I looked at my watch to confirm it. Not as bad as I thought. Carol grabbed a small handful of papers on her desk and aligned the stack by tapping the bottom edge against the desk. I watched her closely. Her hands were big, not manly big, but big for a woman. Broad, long, and strong, fingernails reasonable, and the skin around her knuckles thickened and somewhat leathery. Her hands were very clean, though, and she seemed more dressed for the office than for renovation. She looked fresh in the white shirt and jeans. Tomorrow I put the scrubs on and start on your place. Yeah, you mentioned that, I told her. If I work fast enough, I could get the whole place done by Sunday. Curious about the total picture, I asked her what else she had going on. Well, I've got a roof to do on Bell and a full renovation on Moss to start hopefully before June. Carol turned when she said this and glanced at the wall of pictures, then turned back. Yeah, but I can't start either of those until I finish Orleans. Pause. Your place. Carol's hair was much darker than it was the day before at the footbridge. Solid dark brown, with none of the accents or highlights it showed outside. It was also free and loose for the first time since we'd met. In the back it hung down below her shoulder blades. In the front it reached just to the end of the top slope of her breasts, her hair a little higher when tucked behind the ears. You know, you can always mail me your checks, Carol said next. She caught me staring at her chest, and I was forced to then awkwardly return my gaze to her face and eyes. I looked around the room as it transitioned, then back to her. She stood steady and still with an even expression, her cheeks relaxed, waiting for my response. After nodding ineffectually for a second, I considered the unexpected proposal of mailing my checks. Right, sure, I told her. But then I'd have to remember to buy stamps. I paused. If I have to go to the post office, I might as well come to your office. Either way, Carol said, just don't want to inconvenience you. It occurred to me then that Carol wished to get her work done, to get rid of the intruder. I wanted to ask her more about her renovations, but it was time to get a move on. Well, I better get going, I said before spinning my mental wheel to come up with something else. Maybe I'll see you this weekend or something. Hey, do you want that outside door closed? I offered. Sure, thanks, Michael. Now, if you wouldn't mind leaving, I heard her say in my head. No problem. At the outside door, I noticed Carol's sign. Carol James Management, scribed by router into a wide pine board. The surface of the sign was stained cherry color and clear-coated, the letter grooves painted black, like a sign you'd make at camp. 2 silver eyelets were screwed into the top of the sign at opposite ends, and a 1.5 foot length of wire connected them, strung over a small nail in the door. Her shingle. Bienville Street was buzzing with late rush hour traffic, not very crowded, but fast. Cars sped by, spaced well apart, and with just enough running room to slow down hard, if need be, at the traffic light at Jeff Davis Park. The sky was still blue, but the air between the houses and trees was beginning to darken. The spotlights in the Ford truck parking lot were coming to life early, but not yet to full strength. In the adjacent lot in front of Harry's Ace Hardware and the China Imperial restaurant, the spotlights were more powerful and nighttime had arrived prematurely. Through the force of the taller lights, you could see almost nothing of the dark blue sky. Already just a spotty white ceiling at the ends of the parking lot light poles. Friday for lunch, I went again to Tandoori Chicken at the Elmwood Shopping Center, a few miles from the office. The counterman and co-owner Mandeep said it was free rice pudding Friday and added a generous paper cup serving to my lunch tray. It tasted better than I expected and was my first official experience with Indian desserts. After another ungrilling day at EdTech, instead of coming straight home to Mid-City, I drove back over to the Elmwood area to see an early movie at the new Palace Theater 20 Megaplex, with the 20 giant curved screens and the stadium-style seating, back then touted as the only theater of its kind between Atlanta and Dallas-Fort Worth. I didn't know what movies were playing, but I was anxious to see the new gargantuan palace. Adverse to the likelihood of a fruitless search for a parking space near the entrance, I parked in a more distant, seemingly long-term part of the theater parking lot, then flagged down the golf cart shuttle train for a ride up to the front of the massive, bleached, Mayan temple-like building. I bought a ticket to the recently released Heaven's Prisoners, set in and around South Louisiana, along with a Sprite and a small popcorn. I picked a seat as close to the dead center of the theater as possible, and was then swept neatly into a startled heap by the heavy digital surround sound and the wraparound screen. A monolithic, if mediocre experience, so enhanced by technology to make the astute viewer forget, at least for a while, that the movie he's watching isn't a very good one. The Earhart Expressway was a breeze that night, as it almost always is, a lawless stretch of highway that encourages only speed. The Earhart, also known as the Double E, is a valuable tool for residents of Mid-City and the neighborhoods uptown, especially when late for a movie at the Palace, or late getting home from work, if one works out near the airport. Likewise, another good connector is River Road, aka the Double R, which runs along the levee up from the Garden District up through Jefferson Parish and beyond. Depending on exactly where one works and lives, getting to the Elmwood Shopping Center, the Palace Theater, or any other Jeff Parish attraction is as simple as the Double R, the Double E, or the AH, if the traffic closer to the river is too congested or too flooded. For a late-night snack, I had leftover Chinese takeout from the China Imperial and 2 beers. And it is arguably true that drinking more than 1 beer when you're dining alone can seem a bit sad. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be. It's only sad if you let it be. If you can drink the 2 beers without thinking about them, keeping your attention on a good book or movie, then it's fine. But if you consider every sip and feel bad about the second bottle, then no doubt you shouldn't have had it. For me at the time, 3 bottles might have depressed me. 2, though, was a good even number.